खाल्लं का ग?
Yes, good afternoon, students. Are more students joining? Please put a reminder on your groups. Yes, all the students, please put a reminder in the group, division A, B, C, then use biotech. I'm sharing the screen now. Yes. So yesterday we started with introduction to this chapter. We looked at and we studied what is the environment. Then we also looked at very important. Okay, can you see the screen, everyone? I have shared the screen. Is the slide visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay. Yes. So like I mentioned yesterday, if you have any doubts, you can write it in the chat box also. Okay. So yesterday we looked at what is the environment, what are what does environment comprise of. So if you remember, we looked at biotic components, abiotic components. The abiotic components being the atmosphere, lithosphere, and hydrosphere. Then we also looked at how environmental studies, the subject, is of a multidisciplinary nature. So the nature of environmental studies in itself is of many disciplines. So it is not a single subject. It is an integration of different subjects, right? So we took examples of engineering or economics, like you can see here on the slide. Yes, and also sociology. If you remember, also philosophy outlook as to how there are some traditional cultural practices that we do in India that are present from which are not quite seen in that of the other countries. So therefore, environmental science also overlaps with ethics, right? So therefore, environmental ethics is also something that we are going to be studying in our upcoming chapters, in our upcoming units. Yeah, so therefore, we say that the nature of the subject is multidisciplinary. Yes. Then, if you remember, we also saw a few of these personalities in the field of environmental science. I think you all have written them down. I think you all now are aware of these. I will show you the list again here. So this is the list of these eminent people in environmental science. They have a lot of work, they have contributed hugely to environmental science. Clear? And therefore, it is very, very vital that that you can go home and read about their work. Yes. Please put a reminder on your group. Yes, all the students. Please put and so therefore it's very okay. Just a second. The screen is visible to everyone, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes. So therefore, now we can today look at the scope of the subject. So the scope of environmental science. Um, So, if we look around the area that we live in, right, our surroundings, originally they were Yes. Can you hear me? I got logged out. Um, can you share the screen again. Yes. So we are looking at the scope of the subject, and yes. So what I was telling you is that we have. If you look around the area that you live in, it was the surrounding was originally a natural landscape, like it was a forest or it was a river, right? Or it could have been a combination of this. So the existing towns or the cities that we are currently living in were all just natural landscapes before. Clear. So therefore, what we currently do is also that we on the surroundings for our day-to-day activities, right? So we are inevitably linked to them, our surroundings. We also use water for drinking, and then we use air for breathing. We have resources from which our food is made, and so everything that is around us forms our environment. Our lives are very much dependent on the environment. Therefore, our dependence on nature that you can observe is so great, right, that we cannot continue to stay without protecting it. Right. So our the importance of the first point, that is environmental protection, it cannot be disputed. Environmental protection is therefore um, very important. We cannot live without the environment. We cannot live in isolation. And therefore, it is very important that we conserve our natural resources. So look at the second bullet point. So therefore, it is very important that our natural resources are preserved. They are used in a sustainable manner. Clear. And therefore, there must be a respect for nature in general. Clear. So, like I told you yesterday, the benchmark for the subject is the industrial level. So we have pre-IR standards and post-IR standards. So IR is your industrial revolution. So when industrial revolution started, it started providing us with different goods for our consumer-oriented society, right? So therefore, many natural resources, man started exploiting them, which is your water, minerals. Then you have different petroleum products, and very important, you also have wood. Yeah. So therefore, um, these all these resources will get depleted if we continue to use them at our current rate. So at the moment, humans are exploiting nature a lot. You must have heard about even oil drilling in the North Pole. So, for example, the US is doing a lot of drilling for oil in Alaska, right, which is your North Pole, and it is completely changing the polar ecosystem. So, therefore, it becomes very vital that we conserve our natural resources, because we cannot live in isolation, right? They will be depleted faster than nature can replace them. Clear? So therefore, our natural resources cannot be ignored. So therefore, it calls for the third bullet point, which is your sustainable development. So today in our lecture, we are also going to be studying the concept of sustainable development. What it means, what does sustainability mean? So we are going to be looking at that. Then the next one, the fourth point. So I will come back to sustainable development. The fourth point is environmental impact assessment. So it is a procedure that is done, it is an assessment that is done before any developmental project is undertaken. So you know that sometimes there are dam building activity, or there is mining, right? Or there is construction of roads and railways. Yeah, so before any of these projects are done, before any of these projects are taken up, there is an assessment to be done. Now, what is this assessment? So what do they assess? They will check if they will check questions like why, what is the need for this project? They will check um, why is this project being done at this particular site only, right? They will also study the impact of the project on the surroundings. Clear? Then they will ask other questions like, is it going to hamper the lives of local villagers? Clear? So all of this gets assessed before any dam is built or before any mining project is given permission. Clear? So the assessment of the impact of your developmental project on environment is called as environmental impact assessment. Yes. So does that make sense? If you have any questions, you can write it in the chat box. So the assessment of the impact of developmental activities on the environment is called as EIA. Yeah, so it's a procedure that has to be done before a project is sanctioned. Okay, and lastly, you know, awareness and participation, which is very, very vital again, because we need to create awareness about these topics so that it calls for a major lifestyle change, so that it calls for more conservation action in society. Like last time, like last class, did I tell you that so one of the students in her assignments, she wrote that she started using bamboo toothbrushes, right? So that bamboo toothbrush, and she also started using steel water bottles as an alternative to your plastic water bottle. Clear? So we have to start making changes in our day-to-day activity. Without that, it is not going to cause much effect on the environment. Yeah. So therefore, the importance of public awareness cannot be stressed on much. Right? You already know the importance of this. Why do we need public awareness? Because we want to control pollution. We want to control our increasing population and urbanization, to decrease poverty and to increase literacy. There is a sixth reason also. So why should we control urbanization, right? So as more and more cities, they expand their boundaries, more and more resources are going to be used. Yeah, so more water, more fuel, yeah, so more carbon emissions, all of this will happen. Yeah, so therefore necessary that we control urbanization, right? So therefore, all of this is very, very vital, and a public awareness must be created. So yesterday we saw about a few eminent personalities who are raising their voice for different causes that are listed here, right, for the environment, especially to check climate change. Yeah. Then we know that environment deterioration also has an effect on growth and development. then the living and the working conditions of the local people, right? So therefore, in Japan, in Japan they have cities where they live and work in the same building, right? So therefore they have minimized travel. So therefore, it leads to lesser carbon emissions, because you already know that Japan is such a small country. Therefore, it needs to utilize more and more of its existing space. Clear? So without these, it becomes very difficult to tackle environmental conservation. So each country is different, and therefore each country must come up with its own unique solutions. Clear? And for that, we have different institutions, right? So yesterday we looked at a few of these eminent personalities. So today, quickly, can you tell me a few institutions that are working in this cause of environmental conservation, or of agriculture, or even for animal rights? Can you tell me a few research institutes, or can you tell me a few NGOs? Yes, quickly in the chat box. Yes, PETA is correct. Anyone else? Yes, so PETA does a lot of awareness activity in the field of creating or justifying animal rights. Anything else? World Health Organization. Okay. Yes. Any other students? This is correct. So Gopal is saying UNEP. So yes, and Saloni is also saying the same thing. So what is this United Nations Environmental Program? It's again a very famous program on the international level. United Nations Environmental Program, so which sort of encourages a lot of conservation activity internationally. So any environmental issue, right, within the United Nations or within different countries are discussed and sort of followed by the United Nations under its under its EP, that is your environment program. So it's kind of like the global authority. Anything else? Anyone else? Yes. Can you tell me a few of these NGOs? Do NGOs come to your mind? Yes, Maitreyi, correct. CPCB, yes, very good. So a student has mentioned Central Pollution Control Board. Yes, that is very correct. So that is institution in India at the central level, which monitors the levels of air, water, pollution. There are also state pollution control boards, and we are going to be studying about them in our next semester. Yes, WWF, correct. So that is the World Wildlife Fund. Again, very, very important as far as uh, wildlife is concerned. Yes, so so again, it's a very famous NGO. They create a lot of awareness in illegal trade of wildlife, and also for conservation of wildlife. What is this student saying? Achha, Red Cross. I don't know Red Cross. If it's doing a lot of work for environmental conservation. Then, achha, Rain Tree. So can you tell us what Rain Tree is doing? So what does Rain Tree do? Yes, this is also correct. IUCN. So International Union for the Conservation of Nature. Very good. So IUCN, it publishes a book which is called as a Red Data book, and that book contains details of the different categories of animals for the conservation of wildlife. So yes, Mittal, can you tell us what rain tree does?
Ma'am, it is looking to recruit a dynamic professional to provide high quality field
High
and
quality.
logisticals, means in the way to save trees and all.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So let's so look at more of this list. Look at the screen. Look at the slide. So we have an institution, an NGO, which is called as the Bombay Natural History Society, which is your BNHS. Of course, it is based in Mumbai, but it is very famous for research. So it does a lot of research in wildlife in the country, and in general, the whole point of wildlife conservation has been advocated by the Bombay Natural History Society from a long time. They are they also publish a magazine which is called as Hornbill, right? So the Hornbill magazine is very famous of BHNS. Then the second one, I think students mentioned it, is the Worldwide Fund for Nature. The next one, look at the third one, that is the Wildlife Institute of India, which is present in Dehradun. So WII actually offers, a master's, so MSc in biodiversity, and it is a very famous institute. Like people, like students want to get in there. It's very competitive because of the good quality research that they do. Right, so that is your Worldwide Wildlife Institute of India, and so because this organization is so prestigious, it has information of a lot of biodiversity in India, and therefore it has trained a lot of people, your forest officials, the forest officials or the wardens who are tasked with the job of protecting the national parks. All of these are trained at this number 3, which is your World WII. Here, so they give a lot of training to scientists, a lot of these chief wardens, then wildlife managers, so a lot of habitat management. Clear, so it's very famous. And then the last, so the last two are your ZSI and your BSI. So the Zoological Survey of India is very old. I think it was founded in the 1910s. So definitely before 1920s. It is very old. And therefore, the job of ZSI is to, of course, survey the animals in India. And therefore, they collect specimens, they store these specimens, and then they have a good collection of these specimens. Yeah, so they work a lot on specimen collection and storage. Yeah, so it has a lot of, I think it's based in Calcutta, but they have collection centers everywhere in the world here, and it is one of the oldest collection centers. And the last one is your BSI, which is your Botanical Survey of India. So I think BSI is even older than your ZSI. So Botanical Survey of India, BSI was founded before the Zoological Survey of India, with the same objective of carrying out research in plant resources, right? So they again have a rich database of uh, plant materials. Yeah, so therefore, these are the most popular institutions for environment in India. Yeah, so of course there are other international institutions. Acha, so someone is saying the Lakshmi Foundation. So what does that do? You have to tell me what it does. Someone, yes, this is also correct. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Correct. So IPCC. So
Ma'am,
IPCC.
the Lakshmi Foundation, ma'am, the Lakshmi Foundation is to ban the acid cell.
Is to what?
Ban the acid cell founded by Lakshmi Agarwal.
Okay.
Ma'am, it's shown in the Chupak movie.
Your voice is breaking actually. But we need for environmental conservation, yes. Not human rights. Anyway, so this IPCC is again very, very famous. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It is written in the chat box. It is an international organization and it publishes reports. These are called as your assessment reports. And the reports are published by, really famous and really scholars, eminent scientists. So it's a matter of great prestige to have your report published by the IPCC. They do a lot of research work in the case of climate change specifically, because you know that the climate is increasing. There is a rise of +1 degrees centigrade from the pre-industrial level. So therefore, we need reliable data on how much carbon emissions are released by each country. And so therefore, IPCC is that organization, and I think it reports directly to the United Nations. So it's a very sort of prestigious and global organization that is creating a lot of research publications on climate change. Clear? So I hope you have written this down, everyone. These are the institutions in environment. Yes, if you don't have any more, I can go to the next slide. Yes, so you learned about many institutions today. Okay, so now let's learn about what is sustainability. So the concept of sustainability is very simple. It means that sustainable development is what? Meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. Right? So let me give you an example. So let's say that your grandfather used to visit a lake, and that lake had, let's say, 50 fishes. Okay. Now, when you visit the lake, it has only 20 fishes, right? But then what has happened is the number of fishes, the quality of the lake has deteriorated, right? So what does sustainable development say? That the number of fishes that you received from your previous generations, the same must be passed on to the next generation. Yes, that is the meaning of sustainable development. So what happens is that usually development is put on one hand and environment is put on the other hand. Yeah, so that creates a problem, right? So we don't want to be extreme. We don't want to say that you should not build roads at all, right? We need roads, we need dams, especially in a developing country like India, right? So we cannot say that we don't need these developmental projects, but at the same time, we also need to conserve nature, right? So therefore, it is very essential that both development and environment are managed together, right? So therefore, we need to find a middle path. So what is that middle path? The middle path is that of sustainability or sustainable development. Okay. What is the origin of this concept? The origin is that primarily we all care for Mother Earth, right? So we have a great respect for nature. We do not voluntarily go and chop down trees, right? So therefore, there is a great respect. So this sentiment allows us to use environment in a sensitive manner. Okay, so another example of sustainable development, another example which will help you understand it better, is that our natural resources can be compared to money in the bank. So let's say you put 100 rupees in the bank. Okay, everyone pay attention. So let's say if you put 100 rupees in the bank and you get 10 rupees of interest every month. So you start using that 10 rupees every time, right? So you are not going to touch the 100 rupees. But what happens if you start using even the principal amount? If you start using the 100 rupees itself every time, you are going to be left with no money at the end of 10 months. So this is what is meant by sustainable development, which means that if we use the money rapidly, the capital will be reduced to zero. But on the other hand, if we use only the interest, it can sustain us over a longer period of time. Clear? So therefore, sustainable development means extending the life of natural resources for a longer period of time, right? Preserving the quality of environment for a longer period of time. This is the meaning of sustainable development. Is that clear? So are you following this example?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the concept of sustainable development goals were introduced in 2015, which is your SDGs, right? So I'm writing it in the chat box also. So the Paris Conference of the United Nations in 2015, they all agreed to setting up something called as these sustainable development goals. Clear? So there are in total 17 goals, 17 SDGs, and they talk about, let me just zoom this. So they talk about, clean water and sanitation. They talk about life on land, life below water, a lot of climate action. Clear? So these 17 different goals are very comprehensive. They cover the entire environment. Let's quickly watch a very small video on why the United Nations did this and what are basically these SDGs. So it's a very official video. It's by the United Nations. So you can also look up, you can subscribe to the United Nations channel so you can get more updates. Okay, I am now sharing the screen. Is it visible to everyone? Can you see this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's for 2 minutes. So very quickly, we'll look at what are these goals.
This September, 192 countries meet and went to adopt new global goals. These 17 goals provide a roadmap that will help the world achieve sustainable development. What is sustainable development? How does it define this? Sustainable development is development that meets without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. What does that mean? Everyone understands the need to grow their economies, but not everyone takes into account the negatives that unbalanced economic growth can have on the environment and on well-being. It's time to change that by looking at the world in a different way. Sustainable development goals will help us to do that. Sustainable development is about the big picture. It's about improving the lives of everyone, everywhere, and achieving all these things together. But it's also about the details. That means we want economies to grow, companies to thrive, and people to have decent work. We want to create new, innovative technologies, but not by harming the environment. We want everyone to have access to nutritious food, regardless of where they live. We want affordable and quality education for everybody, not just a few. We want freedom of speech, but we don't want that to be violence. But how can we achieve all of this, and where do we even start? Well, 17 goals will mean the member states, alongside civil society stakeholders and major groups, will be working together for the next 15 years, looking at ways to do business differently so that everyone gains. With these 17 global goals as our guide, we can achieve sustainable development, live in a world where people and planet benefit. But we have to act now. This is the time for global action. To find out how you can get involved and more about the goals, go to www.un.org/sustainable development.
Yes, so very clearly they have explained what is sustainable development. And they also let you know about what are the goals. Yeah, so therefore, the case of sustainable development is that everyone should have a good stake in the resources of the world. Yeah, so therefore, there should be good access to renewable energy. Right? Oh, let me share this slide again. So everyone, I hope you can see it now. Everyone should have, a good access to renewable energy, right? There should be responsible consumption. Yeah, so it should not be the case that only the developed countries are getting benefit from it because they are more, because they have more money power, right? So that should not be the case. There should be no poverty, hunger. Yes, there should be access to quality education. Very important, clean water and sanitation. Yeah, so therefore, that is again very, very important. Then you have your sustainable cities and communities, which means that urbanization must be sustainable, which means that yes, we do need urbanization, but it must happen in a very sustainable manner. Yes, is that clear? So therefore, it calls for a lot of usage of resources in such a way that the existing generation gets a fair amount of a part in it, and also the upcoming generations are also benefited by it. Yes, so therefore, which brings us to the importance of environmental studies, right? So why is it important? Because it clarifies modern concepts, right? It teaches you about biodiversity, about sustainable lifestyles, right? And how you can use resources more equitably. Yeah, so in this subject, in our upcoming lectures, we will learn about eutrophication, or we will learn about ecosystems. Very important is again your carbon footprint. And then in the upcoming lectures, we will also learn about greenhouse gases. Yeah, so these are all sort of modern concepts, very, very vital for us to know about them. Also, your UPSC syllabus. So I know that students give a lot of competitive exams. So the syllabus of your UPSC prelims is the same as that of your SY EVS. Okay, so you might as well pay attention now and get your concepts cleared, right? So which will help you if you are going to give these competitive exams, right? Then there is also a need to change the way in which we view our environment, and there should be a need to create a concern for our environment, which will trigger pro-environmental action. Yes, therefore, in our day-to-day lives, like I said at the beginning of the lecture, is that we need to do some major lifestyle changes, which will help in conservation of our resources as a whole. Okay, yeah, um, as a cultural practice, these European countries, what they do is they don't switch off the light even after they leave the offices. Their offices are always, brightly lit even at night. But that is totally unfair. That is a very wrong practice. But of course, in India, when we leave the room, you must switch off the light. Okay, you must not give this reason that I am paying for it, so I'm going to do it, right? But that is not the case. It is a resource. It is a natural resource. Consumption without responsibility is very, very dangerous. Clear? So therefore, there is a need to create concern for the environment, that will encourage a lot of pro-environmental action. Okay, and then lastly, what we can do is also yes. So lastly, what we can do is think about any resource. So you can think about like water, soil, or energy. For example, you can take drinking water. So there are many questions that are raised in sustainable development. So we should be able to answer these, right? So what is the rarity of the resource and where does it originate? So for example, the drinking water that you have in your house, where does it come from? Okay, is it very rare? So in the cities, it is not rare. But if you go to the villages or if you go to, like Rajasthan, there it is very rare, right? They walk for miles together to get drinking water. So therefore, there it is rare. So who uses it extensively and who uses it most extensively and how? So do residential places use a lot of water, or do industrial areas use a lot of water? Is it being misused or overused? Yeah, so you must have seen, even in hotels, if people just get a glass full of water and don't drink it completely, right, and then they just throw it away. So don't do that. So you can only take as much water as you are going to drink, right? In hotels, you must have observed. So that is just the misuse of your resource. Who is responsible for its improper use? We need to look at the resource collector. Is it the middleman or the end user? So in the case of, again, drinking water, it is each and every one of us. So it is the middleman also, it is the collector also, and it is the end user, that is you and I, right? So you and I are the end users. And how can we help to conserve it and prevent its unsustainable use, right? So not of drinking water, but people wash their cars and people wash their bikes with, they use that pipe, right? So instead of using a pipe and wasting so much water, you can take water in a bucket, because that will get you a limited amount of water, and you can wash the vehicle very clean, right? You don't need so much amount of water to wash your vehicles. Yes, so does that make sense with everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so this is a case of drinking water. How is it being overused or how is it being misused? Yeah, so like this, we can analyze even for food. So food is also a very, very vital resource. So right from the stage of seeds, right, where the farmer grows the seed, right up till your plate, there are so many different resources that food passes through. and there is so much energy that goes into that. So therefore, it becomes very, very important to use it in a proper way. You know how is food misused? There are a lot of people who who don't completely finish what is in your plate, right? And that is a total wastage. Yeah, so therefore, food wastage is again a big concern in a country like India, where we have a lot of gap between the haves and the have-nots. Have you heard of Robin Hood Army? I will write it in the chat box.
Yes, ma'am.
So what does it do? Who said yes?
They collect the food from like weddings or stuff, and they give it to the needy ones.
Yes, very good. Saloni. Correct. Anyone else? Has anyone else? No one else has heard? Yes, where are these other students? Diksha, Aditi, Richa, Vaishnavi. Ketaki, Kaushik. Where is Karan? So Karan was active yesterday. Yes, so like Saloni mentioned, that is correct. So Robin Hood Army, what they do is they collect excess food from homes and they go and distribute it in the homeless or the needy people. Even your mess, right? Because in Pune we have so many colleges and so many students come from outside the state, from outside their homes. So out of Pune, so there are a lot of messes also in Pune. So even these mess, they produce excess food sometimes, which is again linked to these Robin Hood Army. So the people will come and collect food from hotels, from messes, from even your weddings. Clear? And therefore, this is one of the examples of how we can, conserve it, right? So there is no need for wastage. So a very, very famous example is the Robin Hood Army. Then there is also that Akshay Patra, which you must have heard again is providing food to the needy. So therefore, in each and every resource, we need to prevent its unsustainable use. Like for example, again, when I was studying in the US, I have also seen, people just take a big plate, big tray of food and eat very less and then just dump it into the dustbin. And seeing that, I was actually personally very shocked. So you just take how much you're going to eat, right? And then don't take excess helpings or excess servings of food. Yeah, so all of this can be also extended to energy, or it can be extended to soil. So therefore, it becomes very, very vital that energy is saved, energy is thought of as a natural entity that has to be conserved. Is that clear? So here we have completed the scope of environmental studies, the concept of sustainable development, okay, and also the importance of ES. Yes, if you have any doubts, you can write it in the chat box, or I will take attendance. If you have, there's a question. Yes, so they are saying, yes, I will do that. I can send you that. Okay. Our next lecture will be on the next Wednesday, the coming Wednesday, at 5 o'clock. Okay. Let me just check your chat box. Your attendance is like your Google form only that was taken yesterday. Let me share the link with you where you can register your attendance. There is a question. Yes. So sustainable development, yes, it does cater to the present population, but the aim is to look at providing or conserving these resources on a large time frame, right? So the more you extend out the time frame, the more you make it sustainable for long-term use, that serves the purpose of sustainable development. Yes, so does that answer your question? Okay. So now I'm sending you the link for the attendance. It's in the chat box. I will paste it. Okay. So just check.
Ma'am, it's saying it's not accepting.
Okay.
Not accepting.
Acha, can you check it again now?
Ma'am, now it's accepting.
Can you send the link again? It is not visible to me.
Okay, just a second. I will send it again. Yes. So everyone, please find the link in the chat box.
It's 6 o'clock.
Yes. So you have last 2 minutes. If you have given the attendance, then you can leave, and we will meet tomorrow. We will meet next Wednesday at 5 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
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 Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. Yes, the link is in the chat box.